So I'm restricted for 2 more hours, but I had an epiphany when I took a shower this morning. And I woke up with no pain this morning, like no pain at all. And I was thinking, like, back to what I studied like 6 years ago when I was doing all my stuff on my wall when my dog was alive. And I'm thinking, I'm listing out all the systems of the body, and there is no actual immune system. Like, it doesn't have its own little factory. It's not like your immune system is like right up here in this little area, and that's called your immune system, and it's split up between adaptive and innate, and you know where someone's immune system is because it's right here, which means that if you actually had a space that held just your immune system, someone could easily take you out. That would be such an easy target once your opponents out there figured out where your actual immune system is. It's basically what keeps you alive, is that they would take you out. But no different than your heart. You shoot someone in the head, shoot someone in the heart, yeah, they're done. But if you give them another target, like an immune system, and that's why your heart's like so where you can protect it. You can use your arms, you have a breastplate, you have your hands, all that to soften the blow. So if you had an immune system somewhere, that would be another soft target that the opponent can take out. And so when I was doing all those lists of the different systems, I'm like, well, shit. Where's the fucking immune system? Well, it doesn't have it. And then I was studying the antibodies. The antibodies. Oh my gosh. Now that is a major discussion because you see all over the conspiracy world, the mainstreamers, the health and wellness, how everyone wants to go and master their immune system. And if they can't master their immune system, then they're employing proxies, such as the medical holistic energy healing world. And oh my gosh, you know where that's going. And so I figured out that yes, you need antibodies. We have primary antibodies and you have secondary antibodies. Secondary antibodies is what is the mark of the beast. Now, you could have primary antibodies in your body that don't leave or not allowed to leave because your 11 different systems have been disabled through the medical holistic system. And so you could have primary antibodies that stay stuck in the body and then turn into secondary antibodies where they actually become the enemy. They get converted to the enemy. And that's kind of what the situation is right now in people's bodies, is that they've taken so many remedies and done so many therapies that their body is overridden. They are infested with not only their primary antibodies, but their secondary antibodies. And that's what contributes to disease and the aging process. And so what I've been feeling the last couple weeks, what woke up within me, when I was on the lake, was probably primary antibodies and secondary antibodies that were holding court somewhere, that found a space in the body, and since I'm a host, they rooted themselves in. They hunkered down. And then the system increased the heat, the frequencies, the energy, and rooted them out. And then I had to make sure, which I've been doing, is that my 11 differences, my digestive system, my respiratory system, was able to release the demons. Okay? And so the system figured out through the therapies world, through the medical holistic system, how to not only disable your immune system, disable your 12 different systems from releasing. I don't even want to say the immune system because they're not disabling it. They're actually making it so strong that it's actually working against you. But the system, people have disabled aspects of their digestive system and all the different systems. So they're holding on to these little beasts inside. And they can't release them, and it becomes the enemy. And so what I've been doing I've been releasing the demons. And so I really have to learn how to now change the way I say things, because when I'm saying people are disabling aspects of their immune system, well, when you're taking in a secondary antibody, and I don't care what it is, whether it's holistic or what, or through the public health therapies, when you're taking in secondary antibodies, that's going to work against you. Monoclonal antibodies is going to work against you. When you're taking the medications to stop the body from coughing and sneezing and blowing your nose, you're disabling your respiratory system to release. And that's essentially what's going on, is that we have people not understanding what their systems are supposed to do. And so there's so much confusion, so much chaos around how the human body actually needs to work for you, that people are actually signing their own death warrants. And so the last couple weeks, my body has been pushing this shit through. And yeah, sometimes it's painful. Okay. Oh, my hair. But anyway, so the secondary antibodies are the mark of the beast, because those are the antibodies that your body has to protect itself from. That's from all the therapies, all therapies, public health therapies or personal therapies. And also the remedies that you've taken. All the elderberry syrup, all the herbs and extracts and supplements and detoxes and everything that people take in the holistic world, the body also has to release, because again, you are the host, right? So there is a 3 trifecta thing: you, the host, the antigen, which is all of your remedies and everything else, and then the antibody and offspring gets produced. All right? So when the woman's immune system is so full of antibodies, sometimes it turns into a boy, because that's physical stress, and then a girl are less stressful, but that's all relative, right? And so you have primary antibodies, which is your innate immune system, and then the secondary antibodies are the therapies. Sometimes that is your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, or sometimes it's the medical system inserting their information, even carving you out and carving you up. The immune system doesn't have its own category when it comes to the 12 different systems, because the immune systems are the white blood cells in your innate immune system, like your blood. But the adaptive was developed by scientists using monoclonal antibodies and even using your own method, even using other methodologies to force a reaction, such as public health therapies. Okay? And so, what do you call when you're around people and you're sneezing, and when you're, like when pollen comes through? That's called antigen. Okay? And you can say that's adaptive, but it's called antigens coming in. The body's like, okay, you're supposed to adapt to your whatever, right? You're supposed to adapt to your environment. Your body then sneezes because it's something that it has to its primary antibodies binds itself to that antigen and neutralizes it, and then your body has to release it. And so then what happens is then you build up, yeah, you could say adaptive. You build up a tolerance. I don't even want to say adaptive, because that's so broad. You build up a tolerance to your community. But anytime you're around so much pollen, you're always going to sneeze a lot, because that's too much antigen coming at you. Your body has to go then and attack it and then release it. And so everything has to go. All right? You're not supposed to be holding on to so many antibodies in you. That's the autoimmune disorders, when your body's producing antibodies that are not even needed to be produced, because it's called autoimmune disorder. You have autoimmunity when you go out there into any kind of crowd of people, into any kind of environment that's highly antigenic. But again, there's too much of a good thing. Okay? And so I call the 2 halves of your body the upper and the lower immune system, because it's easier than trying to identify all the different systems, like your respiratory system, your digestive system, and then your excretory system, because they're all connected. And so if I made them into upper and lower, you'd understand why the North Pole and the South Pole must work together. So up here is your North Pole, and that's why I cough, sneeze, and blow my nose. And I have to be able to do that, and that's how I relieve the pressure up here, and relieve the pressure even in my arms. Because why people have heart attacks and strokes is that they don't have the body, the waste in the blood has nowhere to go. Their colons are all stopped up full of gunk, not working correctly. Their lymph nodes are not working correctly. Because they start getting these growths because they've disabled their ability for their lymph nodes to work the way it's supposed to. And so you're supposed to be conditioning up here to cough, sneeze, and blow your nose. And then I also make sure down there, when that's in my book. And I can't always say, well, I pull out the demons and I have to go and activate something. I mean, who wants to hear that all the time? I don't like saying it all the time. It's like, it's like too personal. But that's the reality. That's why people don't understand what's going on and don't have the ability to do what I'm doing, because they're too squeamish about their body parts and they always have to have strangers do stuff to them. And okay, if that's how you want to go out, fine. But, you are your own protection. If you employ somebody else, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or even a medical system or some third party, how are you going to protect yourself? You cannot rely on the protection of somebody else. You can't. It's fucking impossible. It's literally impossible. Okay, so you have to understand how the North Pole here leverages the South Pole down there, and they work together. No different than if it's hot down there, then it's cold up here. Those two sides of the world work together, and then the system also plays with the jet stream. And so the Hayflick limit is when the immortalized germline cells used up their downline of somatic cells that can only redouble itself 50 times over. And then a new entity must be stronger and more adaptable for the conditions and to the lifestyle, and develop another downline of somatic cells redouble itself 50 times over. So I got to make sure I correct that. Okay. 50 times self. 50 times over. And then a new entity must be stronger. And then a new entity must be stronger and more adaptable to the conditions and to the lifestyle, and develop another downline of somatic cells, redouble itself 50 times over. So that's then that's your second chance at life. So when you start seeing your gray hair, right, that means that you have exhausted your first 50 germline. You've exhausted some aspect of your biology, your Hayflick limit. And now you're entering into another Hayflick limit. And so gray hair means that you're getting a second chance at life. Some people will have a full head of gray hair if their body is working the way it's supposed to. And they die from that Hayflick limit. So when you see people getting so gray and so white, and they're also 70 or 80 years old, yeah, they're exhausting the Hayflick limit. They've exhausted the Hayflick limit. Maybe they use therapies to kind of help prolong their life, but in climate change, it's anybody's guess if you'll be able to even prolong your life. And so in order to do that, the person must be able to release through their digestive system. So here's the thing. So the Hayflick limit is when the immortalized germline cells used up their downline of somatic cells that can only redouble itself at 50 times over. And then a new entity must be stronger and more adaptable to the conditions and to the lifestyle, and develop another downline of somatic cells redouble itself 50 times over. So that's then second chance at life. But in order to do that, the person must be able to release through their digestive system and excretory system, and eat all food, and deal with the body pushing out the old world. And the old world, push out the old world, and the old world, the past, while dealing with the present, so you can have a future. And I'll tell you, I talk way fast. Oh, okay. I need to, well, I'm telling you, I was like, aha, this morning. It was crazy. It was crazy. I was like, oh my God, the immune system doesn't even exist in the actual 11 different systems because it's in your blood. It's in your blood. And that's the innate immune system is you have your primary antibodies based upon reacting to your environment. But the secondary antibodies is what you don't want to deal with because that's the mark of the beast. You know, that's the mark of the beast is the secondary antibodies. And so, yeah, those, you know, we're against the V's. I understand, but we had to understand it. But why is it that people who are like blood type A and B, who don't have antigen or antibody, anti-antigen or whatever, yeah, anti-antigen A, anti-antigen B, well, they don't have antibodies for that. So you have to give them that. Well, that's because their brain was used. They were those anti-antigens or lack thereof. Hold on a second. Let me go back to the blood type. Blood type A, B. Okay. All right. So blood type A doesn't have antigen for blood, or doesn't have antibodies for blood type B. I don't even know how you say you don't have. Well, I'm just gonna throw the whole blood types because that's programming, and it's not gonna matter if you're blood type A, B, or O at this point because blood type A's and B's need food. They need to be able to eat all food, feel the pain and suffering, and release the demons. So I don't even want to get too into the whole blood types because that would then cloud the whole issue. The blood types were for science to play genetics with. And that's how they were able to get all the diversity. Okay? And get all the fertility. It was through all the different blood types. And people were testing to see what foods, what cultures, whatever would then give them the best relief, the best return on their investment. But when you think about it, if you want to survive on Earth, you have to be able to handle all types of conditions. But you notice that blood type A and B, who are more slight or bigger because of hormone imbalances, all right? I mean, they have to be able to survive all different types of conditions, eat all food, and then, yeah, releasing the demons, releasing the programming that's made them very smart. Remember, blood type A and B were the scientists. And so in a slow frequency environment, they had a high frequency antigen antibody programming based upon the host and autoimmunity. So they're producing stuff, and then they had to eat food and release. But they had more of the neurological firings that are faster, working faster than a blood type O. And that's why you weren't really competing on a level playing field out there. If you had a blood type O and a blood type A and B right next to each other, the blood type A and B were probably groomed for something and also were working at a faster rate than a blood type O, who would be like a little bit slower. Not saying they couldn't learn, but they'd be a little bit slower on the uptake. And so you had the blood type O, maybe were physically stronger, and they were kicking ass out there and taking names, but the blood type A and B had the neurological ability. And so they were firing all four cylinders and they were catching concepts quicker, and then were also used for the industry to develop innovation. So now we're all competing on a level playing field, and the system is now releasing demons. Okay? And so that's what they're saying, that at some point the A and B are going to be less. That's what most of everybody is like blood type O. Okay, so and blood type has to do with also the viruses that are in your body. All right, so your blood holds your immune system, called your white blood cells and red blood cells. And then the rest of your body distributes and releases based upon the needs. Okay, so there are 12 different systems, and there is no system called the immune system because you are the immune system. And the science community adds the adaptive, but you have innate primary antibodies to protect you by attacking foreign invaders, and you have to release the demons, but you can't employ the hospital system to protect you. It's like the fox watching the hen house. Every time you go to the hospital, you are the experiment. I don't care for what reason. You are the experiment. Every single time you get some kind of therapy, you are the experiment. There is no guarantee anything the system does to you, any third party does to you, is going to take and sustain itself. No guarantee. And they always say on the back of the bottle, they always say, hey, you're choosing to do this, but there is a certain percentage rate of whatever. I don't know how they sell it to you because I've never taken oncology or any kind of therapy. I stayed away from the hospital system for the most part. So however they sold those therapies to you it was okay for you, it was comfortable for you. Well, there's no guarantee because people keep getting retreated. They keep going back to the hospital system. They keep going back to the different diets. They keep going back to the remedies. They keep going back to the surgeries. So obviously it's not guaranteed that you're going to get relief or you're going to get any kind of whatever it is you expect. Death is the ultimate outcome for pain and suffering. And so the 12 systems and the immune system is not its own system. So there's the integumentary system, hair, skin, and nails. There's the skeletal system. There's the muscular system, the nervous system, the endocrine system. That's your excretory. Cardiovascular has your immune system called your blood, your white blood cells. Lymphatic system, so your lymph nodes are the one that holds on to that stuff and pushes it throughout the body to put it in the prospective places. All the beta cells, B cells, what is it? God, I'm just like, oh my Lord. Antibodies, B cells. All right. So you have your natural killer T cells. And you have your B cells. I mean, you can go and characterize them to be whatever. But here's the thing. When you're developing offspring, are the offspring going to work for you or against you? All right. So the NK T cells are the killer T cells. They're the apoptosis. And that's the programmed cell death. When you're going from one Hayflick limit to another. Then when the body goes through a type of senescence and it's also trying to rebuild itself, there is a programmed cell death, and that also can be used in the therapies world where they're programming certain cells to die. And I'm telling you, there's a lot going on. And so your lymphatic system has all these different types of programmed antibodies that could be antigen based upon the programming. But when you get like lymphoma, B-cell lymphoma, you get all these different types of cancer just because you're holding on to the antibodies and the antigen. And you, the host, that's called infection. You, the host, can't tell the difference between what is working for you, what is working against you. You just feel infection, you feel stuff, but then you're taking medication to stop your body from releasing because you don't want to feel the pain of release. And then also lifestyle. Yeah, alcohol, drugs, aggressive amount of sex, parties, hanging out with people right now during this environment is pretty crazy. And that's why before the VHCC-INEs came into the picture, we didn't have a huge population. Population boom was from the fertility of the vaccines. So let me look at this again. We had, in 1500, we had 450 million. 1600, we have 500 million. So 500 million. That's where the system wants us to go. Where we're at, we're living in the 1600s again, but with a more advanced society with less people. And so then the smallpox vaccine. And so then, like, the whole 1850 to 1900, 1860, well, that was the Civil War. The Civil War, yeah, they were using the smallpox microbes and gave it to the soldiers. And what did they do? Soldiers go out there and hang out with people, have their issues. Holy shit. Oh yeah. And this was all planned. This was not organic. Yes, they had to, people feel stuff about, they have discrimination. It's all planned, yes. And you had to see the worst of humans. You had to see what humans did to the black people, the Asians, the Mexicans, all the different cultures. Every single culture has been under fire from somebody. Every single culture. And then you had to figure out down the road how you're going to survive the culture that you're in and survive the competition around you and be the ultimate survivor. And that's exactly where we're at right now, is who is going to be the ultimate survivor. And so America, yeah, is the last greatest experiment. Abso-freaking-lutely. And so you have the respiratory system, or you have the lymphatic system, the respiratory system up here, respiratory system, ear, nose, and throat, digestive system. That's what I'm saying. The respiratory system, digestive system, and every other system has to all work together. You can't go and say, well, I'm going to go take a medication for this to vasodilate and to vasoconstrict. That's called therapy, raping the body, mind, and spirit, forced to do something that's not conditioned to do. So people are taking all these different remedies and drugs for each part of their system. Oh, I got to take, this insulin because my body, my pancreas, my thyroid can't produce insulin. Why can't I do that? Because other systems are obviously not working. And so people are stuck on a string of drugs, string of therapies, and they're a mess and they're falling apart, and they're constantly going back to the hospitals to get treated over and over until you can't be treated anymore. And then the die suddenly, because from the suffering, is going to be the thing that you're going to pray for people, because their suffering is too much. They don't have within them to handle pain and suffering. Because you have so many antibodies stuck in the body that are waking up in this environment. And they're turning to turbo cancers, or you're feeling your body light up. Like yesterday, I felt my arm was so goddamn sore. It's not this morning. It's not at all. I just had an epiphany this morning going like, oh my God, the adaptive immune system doesn't really exist. You have an innate immunity. Yes, you have your own. You are the host, and you have 12 different systems, and you have an intake and a release, right? An exit. But everything else is either, it's by your environment you're programmed, and it's called adaptation. But then the medical system, you see hospitals are in every fucking corner. You see clinics, emergency clinics, urgent care on every single corner, ambulance, every single corner. I mean, yeah, because people are like Frankenstein. They are patched together. They're patched together and made to do a job. Like literally made to do a job. That's the slavery system. Then you have all the spirituality. People are like, oh gosh, we got to go and pray to this and pray to that and pray to some person and say this person is so amazing. Yeah, they're fucking programmed. Okay, so past, present, and future is host, antigen, and antibody. So you have the host, you have the antigen, which is the present, and the antibody is the future. And you have to be able to merge together the past, present, and future. And be the present, and be able to interchangeably take on the past and release the past, take on the future, release the future, take on the present, release it. And it's all like juggling. It's juggling. Okay? And so pain is the body pushing out the antibodies, regardless if it's primary or secondary. Again, if you hold on to so many primary antibodies, it'll work against you, hence the name antibody. The use of antibodies was how they deployed gene edits until it came out of control, until the antibodies became demons that controlled the people. Now go look at your community. And you have many of them. People are full of viruses, which are made up of parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, and bacteria, and they lay dormant, and then they wake up, and they're part of your body, mind, and spirit, but you're also supposed to release them if they become too numerous. Different frequencies wake up different colonies, which is why some people get affected by climate change more than others. Now, my husband, he does feel pain. He does feel stuff, but he's able to work through it. But he said, he's telling me like where he'd feel pain in his hands. He'd feel pain. He's like, oh God, I think I'm getting arthritis. I'm like, nah, no, your body's pushing some shit through. You have to eat food, and you have to release demons and all that stuff. And so anything from the medical holistic system selling you protection is propaganda. How can the fucking hospital system protect you from anything? They can't. They can cut out shit. They can give you something to relieve the pain receptors from being that aggressive, but they're not protecting you. That word protection is a fallacy when it comes to a third party. You either have the ability to protect yourself or you don't. If you can't deploy your own protection and release the demons on your own, then you're going to bring in third parties. And they're going to just keep taking and taking and taking until you basically treat yourself out of existence and you work yourself to death. And in the meantime, you have friends and family and company, so that way you don't feel so lonely. So anything from the medical system selling you protection is propaganda. So I'm going to read this. You don't need protection from something that you should be able to release. The reason why they employ antigen to develop antibodies, so that way they can see the offspring and use it. See the offspring. Antibodies can help protect against fungal infection, right? By binding to surface antigens on the fungal cell wall. These antibodies can then act as opsonins, which can increase the phagocytic activity of immune cells. Antibodies can also neutralize fungal toxins and components, prevent fungal entry, and stimulate antibody-dependent cytotoxicity. But see, even though that might be true, like innately, why do you think they're posting this? Because somebody in the medical holistic system will then try to sell you an antifungal cream, an antifungal medicine, pill, powder, supplement. And so that's how people get snowed by the medical holistic system. And then they develop secondary antibodies. But I guess you had to see how shit works, right? But either you're going to develop your own protection and understand what's going on, or you're going to employ a medical doctor or holistic doctor to then try to protect you from your own body, mind, and spirit until they can't anymore. And that's going to be, right now, since we're heading to only 500 million, and I don't know how long it's going to take for us to get there, so many people in your world will not be able to understand my information. They won't be able to even deploy my information to help save them. Let me tell you, when I sat in that pain yesterday with my arm pain, and I'm just like, geez, I can feel it. After I ate some food, I could feel just in my arm, just the lightning bolts. And I'm just like, damn. But I was willing, I thought, I was saying, I'm okay with just sitting with the pain. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with just sitting with the pain. And so, yeah. So I got to write that too, because about what the antibodies, because there's two ways you can look at the information of what they're putting out there. And I need to, this is propaganda for the medical system to deploy protection. This info is good to know how your white blood cells work when it comes to infection, how your white blood cells work when it comes to infection. But once you deploy a third party like anti-anything in the medical holistic energy healing world, you are developing demons and fertility and premature death. Because how long are you going to sustain having so many of the offspring come into your body and attack your body? You need the fungus in your body, but obviously infection means that your body is not releasing. Why isn't it releasing? Because you've disabled its release process. And you're holding, see, in a lower frequency environment, people were taking in all the antigen and they had antibodies, but they weren't releasing them. And if they did try to, it would hurt. So they take a medication until it turned into a cancer, because those antibodies stuck in the body turn into tumors, cancer, disease, chronic illness, and also children. And so in a high frequency environment, then those antibodies from all that protection wake up. They wake up and then they attack. And that's what you're seeing right now. That's why you're seeing all the suffering out there. Is people are holding so many primary and secondary antibodies. And they might be living off the energy of the body going through that energy conversion of fighting a fight. But that's why you see they died suddenly. Because the fight became too much. The person didn't even know it because they disabled their pain receptors because they're taking painkillers or whatever. And they die suddenly. It's done. And that's probably the best way to go. If you can't handle pain and suffering, and maybe you know innately that you've been under medications, your kids have been taking medications for years. Every single time spring allergy season comes up, they're on Claritin or Allegra. And every single time cold and flu season comes up, they're taking all the different V's. And then they're also taking elderberry syrup and everything else under the sun. And you also know the kid has their own, everybody has their own health issues. At some point, they're going to either suffer or die suddenly. Because how can you force a kid to grow up releasing demons and taking on substance and be forced to be in pain and suffering? You can't. So what's the most humane way to go out? Died suddenly. And that's some crazy fucking shit. That is some oh my God. And so, removing waste from the body has nothing to do with antibodies. Okay? Yeah, your body needs to remove the waste. But when I'm releasing demons, there's so much waste material from just whatever, and I can't say it's just, you don't see anything about the systems when it comes to antibodies. You see digestive system, and you see the excretory system. So the digestive system, the body system that converts food into energy and nutrients to fuel the body. Chemical digestion, the breaking down of the food using chemical agents, such as enzymes and bile. Mechanical digestion, the breakdown of food by physical means, such as chewing. Absorption, the process by which nutrients pass through the walls of the digestive system in the blood. So in the blood, and then the excretory system, the body system that removes metabolic wastes from the body. But the blood, when you're absorbing that nutrition, yeah, you have a defense system. But remember, you can be overly protected. You realize that people have when you have a standing army that's so aggressive, an army that's trying to protect the system from each other, that army, was it absolute power corrupts absolutely? When your defense system is so on point to the point of where, oh my God, it's overly, like, what do they call it? Not more than reinforced, but they say they have a very strong immune system. It's like saying you have a really strong army, like China has a strong army, Russia has a strong army, America has a strong army. And sometimes they kick down the doors of their own people. Sometimes there's friendly fire. So when you have a very strong immune system, then you become predatory. Then absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's like having a giant person out there knowing that they can kick everybody's butt and they throw their weight around. And so having a strong immune system can actually work against you. But you don't want a weak one either. What do you do? That's what I'm saying. Most people out there are children. They don't understand how this shit works. And when you have children out there, they're always going to ask somebody to protect them. Always. They can't protect themselves. And then they become the lamb that's led to slaughter. And that's why you see that in the Christianity. Everybody's a lamb. They're worshiping the lambs. Jesus is their shepherd, and they're all the lambs, and they can't wait. And it's interesting to watch even those in the Hebrews. They're like, well, I'm living to die, so I can go to the kingdom of forever heaven. That's the same thing as being lamb led to slaughter. So it's something the Hebrews and the Christians actually believe the same things. It's really crazy. I mean, it's trips to read people's Facebooks. Oh my gosh. And so excretory system, the body system that removes metabolic waste from the body. Excretion, the process of removing waste and excess water from the body. This is the job of the excretory system. You remove waste such as gas, carbon dioxide, okay, as liquid, urine, and sweat, and as a solid. The kidneys remove metabolic waste products and foreign particles from the body, as well as maintain the water volume and the concentration of various ions, like the salt and all that, electrolytes. And so I did a lot of study on the primary antibodies, secondary antibodies, and I figured out the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast are the trapped antibodies and the secondary antibodies. And yes, fertility. And so the system and the only way the system can get the right type of human and culture them and make them stronger and make them extremely smart. Well, look what they did back then. They employed so much of the public health therapies, which was the fertility. Then you saw all the babies that were booming, and they were also used in the fairs as all those, Victorian people were going through the sideshows, through the baby tents. They're like, oh, look, there's a baby in an incubator, another baby in an incubator, baby in an incubator. Yeah, they were so much science, so many experiments. And now you're seeing all the experiments out there. And so your children came from the antibodies in your body. Your children were the antibodies, and they were developed, and you too were developed by the system. When you realize you were developed as a programming for the system, you were developed, and where you came from, the long line of wherever you came from, well, some of you know your history, others you don't. But those that have big families, let's say you're Gen X, yeah, your boomer or silent gen or even gray generation parents went through aggressive fertility. They were using public health therapies and they were the experiments. And that's why you are here. Because you came from aggressive experimentation. Aggressive. And some people came to this world at a weaker level. Some people came at a stronger level, but even that strength can turn into weakness. And so now the system is changing the climate, and now you're seeing the antibodies, the demons, are on the move. And then people are constantly at the hospital, constantly getting remedies, constantly getting surgeries, constantly asking the system to test them. Test me for this, test me for that. Okay, now you have a test for something. Now you have a diagnosis. So what do? You're going to attack it? Okay, that's going to compound the issue. But again, you can't tell people this. But they're suffering. There are people on my Facebook who are suffering so much that a diet suddenly would probably be the best thing for them. Because how many remedies are they going to deploy to make the shit worse? To make even the suffering worse and worse and worse? How many surgeries are you going to take? And then suffer again 2 or 3 weeks later. And suffer again and suffer again. And then people are left watching this. They're like, their hands are tied because the person is lost in the system. They're done. And so the diet suddenly is probably the most humane way to end the suffering of animals, of humans. And then you don't take on something that you can't control as far as, you don't take on anything. You take on yourself. To take on a dependent, they're going to suffer at some point, and then they're going to die. When you have children, they're going to suffer and die unless they figure it out themselves. When you have an animal, they're going to suffer and die. You think giving them a good life, really? But the system did that for a reason, so then you would be conditioned to accept being born, having a good life, whatever that is, and then suffer, and then die. And so when kids are conditioned to watch animals and their friends and family be born, suffer, and die, then they will adopt that very same tradition. You're born, You suffer, you have a life, whatever that is. You suffer and then you die. So, the died suddenly is what will cut down on the aggressive suffering. Because people are dangerous when they're suffering. Animals are dangerous when they're suffering. Humans are dangerous when they're suffering. Even me introducing this to people who are suffering, who are angry, who are suffering, and they don't like the fact that they're told that they are a human experiment. Oh yeah, you are. What are you gonna fucking do? You have the option now. If you're an adult and you don't have any children, you don't have any animals, you're not stuck to somebody who has more influence over you than you have over yourself. You might have a chance to sit in the pain and suffering. Throw yourself in the shower, have hot water go on you, from not too hot because you don't want to burn yourself. Release those demons on the toilet, in the shower, wherever, and figure out how you're going to save yourself and release those demons of antibodies. Because yeah, when you have animals, you're taking in the antibodies. When you have children, you're taking in their antibodies. When you're around a lot of people right now in this influential environment, you're taking on antibodies. And you also have a bunch of them in your body that get triggered by them. That's why the last 3 years, whenever I would go out and hang out with people, I would breathe in the information. It would trigger the antibodies within that are laying dormant, like little nests. And I'd have this like little lightning bolts in different places of the body. Yeah. And then the last couple weeks, just watching those ghost shows, it was like, I'm serious. Like this thing in the back of my neck. Let me see. Can you guys? Oh God. So what is gonna dissolve this? My own immune system. This is the devil. This is the demon. It's not as bad right now, but this. Can you see it? This is the demon. It's not as bad, but this is your lymphatic system. This holds the demons, and people hold so many of those demons within, it becomes them. And you're so skinny, you are the demon. And then you're stuck in that persona until you bring on food and start gradually releasing the demons and becoming whatever it is. I don't know. That's the thing. If you don't know anything other than what you are, then you will be that demon of love and hate and happiness and all that shit. And fine. Hey, great. That's diversity. But eventually, the devil does take his due. Eventually. That's called died suddenly. And people are suffering. You hope that... Because there's not... Here's the thing. People are like, well, they can find a remedy to this. Nah. I'm done. That's what I'm saying. That's what got you in this situation to begin with. It was all the remedies, all the surgeries, all the herbs, the extracts, the operations, the drugs, the alcohol. That's what caused then the compound... all your suffering compounding and then coming new suffering and new suffering. And so if you can't release the demons and sit with the pain and suffering, eat all the food supply, then the diet suddenly is the most fucking humane. Like, I'm serious. Because that's not any kind of life. And so again, when I'm coughing and sneezing and blowing my nose, that's me releasing demons. When I'm pooping every morning, getting up early in the morning, having weird dreams, it's me releasing demons. But I will never deploy a third party to protect me. You don't go someplace to get protection. You either have it or you don't. When you call the police, they're not protecting you. When you call the police, they're going to come in and intervene and break up the situation and hopefully give you a way out. But you already are in the danger. They can't protect you. You're either going to survive that situation or not. Because even when the police come and you're caught in the crossfire, you could die in a crossfire. There is no guarantee the police can protect you. There's no guarantee the military can protect you. There's no guarantee anyone out there can protect you. And there's no guarantee the medical fucking system can protect you. You either have the protection in your body and yourself, or you don't. There is no, oh well, I'll just go and buy the protection. I mean, even having a GUN. I don't ever want to use my GUN, ever. I don't want to. That's not the first thing I go to. Whenever I think something's happening out there, that's not the first thing I go to. If that's the first thing you go to, then you're a deadly person. I don't want to ever use a protection like a firearm as the first go-to. Ever. It would only be in self-defense if someone's in my house and I feel like my life is in danger, that I have no way to retreat. All right? So either you have protection or you don't. You either are inviting danger to your house all the time or you're not. You're either going out there and inviting danger into your body, mind, and spirit, or you're not. Oh God, but we have to be around people. Yeah, well, you better then figure out how you're going to survive the people around you. How you're going to survive your friends, your family, your occupation, your politics, your religion, and your science. How are you going to freaking survive everything that you have thought was organic? Nothing is organic. Everything is engineered. Everything is. And when you think about the 1600s, is when they probably figured out, oh, we're going to increase the population, have it double, triple, quadruple. We're going to see all the different cultures. We're going to have certain societies and organizations to perpetrate and sustain and whatever. And then people are going to take notes and gather data and information. And then at some point, we're going to figure out some stuff, figure out how to watch people. Because, yeah, George Orwell, Aldous Huxley, Brave New World, George Orwell, surveillance, absolutely. Because the system has developed monsters in our society, absolutely. Now they're going to watch everybody act out their programming. Some people won't survive it, so you pray for it died suddenly because they can't handle pain and suffering. So we'll eventually go back to the 1600s, but with a more advanced society at 500 million. And there's going to be a lot of craziness as far as the tornadoes, like they were telling us in The Wizard of Oz in the 1930s, and floods, Noah's Ark, Noah's flood, people who are manic, bipolar, out there driving buses really fast, like that. I listen to the news, I'm like, geez, so much. That's why I stay home and stay safe. That's why I watch the news, to remind me of the kind of society that I live in. That's why I will look at the diet suddenly groups, to remind me what people are dealing with. Not because I love living in negativity, no, to remind me that there's another world out there besides my world that also exists that I don't want to be part of if I don't have to. I will not put myself in diverse situations. I will not go and deploy or employ protection from somebody else. I don't need to party with people. I don't need the crazy entertainment like these people are sitting in Disneyland or going to all these places. Yeah, I get it's nice to go to these places because you're trying to escape your life. But that comes at a cost. I'm not going to try to have children. No. I'm with someone that I will need to survive. And hopefully he survives me and I survive him. We survive each other. And so, but during this high frequency climate change, whoever you're living with, you have to survive them. They have to survive you. Because your antibodies will turn into antigen to them. And then it's a war back and forth. And each side are going to have to protect themselves from even their own partner, from their animals, from their children, from their community. You're in a war. It's called the ultimate survivor. If you can't protect yourself, nobody can. And so the secondary antibodies, mark of the beast, trapping antibodies within the body is the mark of the beast as well. But the secondary antibodies are the ultimate mark of the beast because that shows the world that you don't know how to use your own protection. You can't release, you can't retain, you have issues with eating, and you have other issues that, yeah, it's done. And then you pray that they're not suffering too much, and you hope that they're not suffering, and that at some point the system will give them a humane way to go out. But you can't be the one to lay the groundwork for somebody else to die suddenly. They have to lay their own groundwork. And if you do lay the groundwork for someone to die suddenly, then you have a medical license. But even then, do you think nurses and doctors want that kind of blood on their hands? So, I don't know. It's crazy. All right. That's all I'm going to say right now. I'm sure I'll post stuff later or not. I don't know. We'll see. I think I pretty much figured it all out. It's probably why the system put me on a timeout, so I can actually think about this stuff and characterize it correctly. May the odds be in your favor. Bye.